Hey folks, welcome to Bear Mountain today. We are gonna be getting one of our hoop houses we used to use for raising flowers fixed up to plant spring vegetables in it. To start off, we're gonna be planting our potatoes in here as well as some of our storage onions, just as a way to kind of get things jump started, because things have been really pretty cool and wet for this spring. So we decided to kind of move some of those storage crops that would be finished by mid-season in here and get them going. But one of the things we wanted to do with this tunnel is to move this over to using a 100% Jadam type fertilization and soil microbe type and of I guess you'd call it methodology. We want to make this tunnel use that kind of technique totally. We kind of let this thing go to fallow last summer after we kind of stopped the flower business in the middle of last year. We didn't need this tunnel, so we just kind of stopped using it for flower production. And we did get a bit of fall weeds that got started in here, and things did survive. Some of the perennial stuff, did fine, like the Delphinium, and we had some Dianthus. But we're going to kind of leave these guys in here because just for our own personal use.
How long have they been there?
This Delphinium, I think this would be like its 4th year.
Right.
And the Dianthus is Rocket series. I think most of it is anyway. Rocking or Rocket. Rocking. Okay. And it's been kind of growing here on a perennial basis this will be like probably its 3rd year for most of it.
Right.
And so the first step, though, to get ourselves going for the season is we're going to give this open ground 3 different drenches of Jadam microorganism solution and in combination with liquid fertilizer, the Jadam liquid fertilizer. And so what we did is we started a brew on this last, would have been Saturday morning, and today is Wednesday afternoon, I guess.
Yep.
So we're looking at pretty close to 4 days of brew time, and what you'd say were just ambient temperatures. So we didn't use any heater. The only thing we put around it was a fabric cloth, because we had several nights where it got down to in the low 30s. And so it didn't freeze, but it was definitely cold. And then the daytime temps in the tunnel would warm up to somewhere around 70 or so. So we're getting a specific brew that is kind of better suited for this time of year. And I kind of wanted to show you guys that this is ready to go. And so we'll take some pictures here and looking on the inside. But what you'll see on the inside is that there's bubbles in the center, and there's a definite ring of clear on the outside. And this is about as good as the bubbles situations get at this time of year with these kind of temperatures. So with good leaf mold or compost soil, you'll get a different look at different times of the year when you're doing this if you're using ambient temperature. If it stays really cold, and you say, well, my ambient doesn't get above 40 degrees, or and my nighttime temps are in the 20s, it's going to take a very long time to brew, and probably isn't going to do much until the temperatures get back up. It's probably optimum brewing temperature is when you get somewhere around 70, and maybe your nighttime temps are in the 60s. Daytime temps could be in the 80s, so you kind of get this average of 70 or so, and it will tend to brew pretty fast. Although today, being the 4th day, is pretty good for this time of year. So we're going to be applying this JMS at a pretty heavy rate on the open soil. You can go down as low as a dilution of 1 to 10, or in some cases, if you're applying it outside and it's going to be, say, raining shortly, you can even apply it almost straight. But we're going to be using a dilution inside the tunnel here, I found from experience, of being somewhere right around 1 to 50 or 1 to 40 dilution, right in there, in that range. And then applying fertilizer with it at a dilution rate of about 1 to 200. So we're going to use our Maze injector system that we did a couple videos on to actually do the application. And beforehand, you may notice that the soil in here is pretty wet. We've been wetting it down now for a couple, 3 days, been running the drip irrigation on it several times during this period of time to get a really good deep drench. Because after we apply it, what we're going to also do is run the drip irrigation again, because we want to drive the solution down into the soil below the surface. So like I said, we're going to do 3 applications of this before we plant. And our potatoes should be...
They're arriving on Saturday.
So we're a few days off on that. And so we're going to be doing this, probably got about another week before we can actually plant the potatoes.
But
roughly.
In terms of the soil prep before we apply this, what did you do? You obviously took out all the dead and weeds and stuff. What else?
Yeah, actually that's all I did, is I just removed all of the stuff on the top, and you can see there's still some straws and things left from previous plants that were here. There's also a fair amount of weed seed, so that's the other thing that I'm kind of giving it a little more time.
But
so
you did not till.
I did not till. No, there's no tillage in here at all.
Never has.
Never has. And we shouldn't need to at all to till in here to do the planting we need to do. We do apply some organic material. This bed here, like in the center as an example, has a fair amount of compost on it already, so I'm not too worried about that. We'll probably do some form of like a cover crop. I'm trying to figure out a way to do add organic material in here, primarily through live plants, and not so much in terms of like, having to apply compost itself. So we want to use the crop residues and kind of get them returned back into the soil, and that kind of be our methodology for applying organic material. That in addition to, switching in like in between crops, maybe a fast buckwheat cover crop type thing. So what we may do after we finish the potatoes and onions in here is prep this thing for fall planting of brassicas and lettuce and greens and things like that maybe can take late into the fall and that sort of thing.
Where it's easier protection than to do our little beds.
Right.
With protection.
Right. And this tunnel is each bed is about 220 square feet. They're about 75 foot long, roughly 3 foot wide. So I guess close to 225 in terms of its square footage.
Pumpkins and stuff in it? Or we're going with another tunnel?
We're going to do that in another tunnel. And the reason we're putting our pumpkins into a tunnel is we needed to get some form of protection for those, because they really got slaughtered last year by the deer, which is surprising to us. It's the first time it ever happened. So we can protect these things in tunnels a lot better than we can out in the open field.
Also, the reason we moved... we did potatoes, we did a video of potatoes out in the main field. Can you tell us what happened there?
Yeah, again, we had a huge herbivore problem. This time it was 25-pound nutrias decided that they liked potatoes. And so we ended up...
lost the whole crop.
Lost a substantial part of the crop, but we did get rid of the nutria, but unfortunately they're kind of endemic around here, so...
But they're not native.
They're not native, no. They're just here, and they live in ditches and other places.
Waterways.
Wherever there's water, they're around, and in the summertime,
and they can
start
be very
migrating.
Destructive to the waterways.
Yeah. If you have ponds, people have ponds, they end up with holes in liners and things like that. I mean, they're just
not something.
It was somebody's
like.
great idea in the 1940s. It was going to be the next mink, but that didn't work out. So anyway, thought I'd show you, the JMS brewed up here, and the next thing we're going to take a look at is the fertilizer that we're going to be using.
Also, one more question.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't pull any of the crops out of here, you just cut them off.
That's correct. Yeah.
So all the roots are still in the...
Yeah, whatever root systems were in there, I didn't use the energy to try to pull all that stuff out.
But that's typically how you remove a crop.
Yeah, we just cut off at the ground level.
And don't pull.
And don't pull the roots, let the roots rot.
Okay.
That holds true for just about anything. Sunflowers, whatever, we don't bother with that. So let's go take a look at the fertilizer. All right, just before we do the fertilizer, there is one thing I just kind of wanted to show you guys is what are we using as an inoculum, basically, to get the Jadam microorganism solution. And, leaf mold soil that's harvested from, forested areas is always kind of like looked at as saying, well, you got to have that. And that is certainly probably the best, particularly in areas that haven't been disturbed, substantially a lot. They've just been forested for, quite some time. You're going to find pretty good leaf mold soil in those, particularly around older trees, things of that nature. You're going to find a lot of biologic activity. If you don't have that, though, in Jadam, you can use your own, what I call compost soil. In a sense, they lay out basically if you harvest that soil interface underneath an area that's been covered with essentially compost, they use wild grasses, which means broadleaf weeds, broadleaf grasses and things of that nature that are in a growing phase, not in a seed phase, not dried out, but actually they were still quite vigorous in terms of growing. And you don't have to pile it on very thick over some decent soil, maybe a couple of inches, and keep that area moist and maybe covered with some kind of porous covering over the top of it. And in a few weeks, you'll actually have a lot of the same biologic activity that you would find, maybe not quite as fungally diverse as you would find under leaf mold soil, but definitely you'll have a lot of the same biology. And what I do is I have an area here on the farm that has planted in maple and oak trees many years ago. These trees are like 30 years old. And the area is kind of we let the leaves go. We don't rake them up. And so they've formed their own little ecosystem in there. So I harvest from that, as well as I harvest from underneath our compost piles, that interface of the soil. And I also, from time to time, particularly if it's really good fresh worm castings, I'll harvest those too. So it tends to be a bit of a mixture. And this is kind of what it looks like. It's loose and crumbly, and it has a very earthy smell, kind of like, if you've ever had new dug potatoes, you know what that smell? It's kind of like that.
It does smell like that.
And it's very biologically active. I've looked under solutions of it looked under the microscope, and there's quite a diversity of biology in it. Now, can I tell you what all is good and what all is not? No, because, frankly, I don't think even really super trained people in this sort of thing, they can identify what things are necessarily, but they may not know all the interactions that go on between them. So I kind of look at it this way, is that if I took something that is balanced in nature, it's most likely going to contain a broad variety of things that gives me a diversity. That's what I'm looking for, is to apply to the soil in the JMS a diversity that also interacts well with what's already here, and will tend to move the soil to being more biologically balanced. So,
and it's also oriented to our farm.
That's the other thing is the microorganisms that we're taking are from areas that are chemically free. So, we have not been using chemicals on the farm here for over 15 years. And in these areas that I'm harvesting this stuff from, the leaf mold soil that I'm harvesting from, we never use chemicals in there. So it's always been, I think, not affected by that. So I just wanted to show you that, guys, that. Now the next thing is when we first got our big barrels about 3 years ago, it was 3 years ago last month, we made early spring grass Jadam Liquid Fertilizer. And I still have, surprisingly, about half that barrel left, because I've kind of been using a diversity of things, through the growing season. And I'm now going to be using that in here, and I have, this is Jadam Liquid Fertilizer, and it is grass-based. It had broadleaf weeds in it. It had, when I say broadleaf, I'm saying had some spring thistle in it. It had some chickweed in it. It had some purslane in it, and it had wild grasses. Okay, so those were all anaerobically decomposed with leaf mold soil. And over the span of this 3 years, it's aged out. It now actually has no odor to it at all.
Not a bit.
And where it used to before, Denise would almost, want to keel over.
It was bad, but I don't smell a thing, and I've even put my nose up to the jar.
She's even missed the point that I've got a 3-gallon bucket over here with a loose lid on it.
I don't notice it, so.
So the point of it is a lot of people say, I get comments and questions and saying, well, that's an anaerobic sludge that you're putting on your plants, and you're going to be, causing more harm than good. And the reality is, it's like, well, once it's decomposed, those things that could have been harmful in terms of chemicals or acids or things that may have been part of the decomposition process are well gone. And what is left here is suspended solids that were minerals and nutrients and things that were in the plants that were part of the decomposition process. And actually, there's very little sludge in the bottom of the 45-gallon barrel. I packed that thing when we made it 3 years ago. I packed it.
It was really full.
And it's like there's hardly anything left. So this is a pretty rich solution that will apply. It's not like applying Miracle Grow or applying, a chicken manure or something of that nature. It's not a high nitrogen thing. It's more about it captured the minerals of the quick growing grass in early spring when the roots of the grass, bring the plant back to life in spring, and that flush of growth is not heavy in carbon, but it's got a lot of minerals and things of that nature in it. And that's what we're capturing to bring into here to help give the microbiology a boost. It's also the same stuff we'll be using as a regular, just a drench fertilizer to be used. It's not super hot. It won't burn the plants. At this stage, it's probably never going to get any better than it is today. And that's so I'm thinking this is going to be pretty good stuff to add.
Is it time for us to make more? I mean, have we gone through all that we've made?
I still have one complete barrel that I haven't tapped yet.
Okay.
So I've got 140 gallons.
But you're also recommending not to do this fast, but to do it slow.
Right. So what I'm hoping to do is get the first barrel down low enough that I can just start a whole new batch probably this month.
Yeah, we're in April.
Yeah, so I got to get it done. So, but yeah, that's kind of the plan. So that when we go to the next barrel, this one will have, by the time I get back to it, will probably have 2+ years, kind of like the same thing. Now, the reason why I'm kind of going with a long decomposition process is there is a lady in Korea that's been using Jadam for quite some time, and she raises peppers, like hot Asian type peppers. And she makes her liquid fertilizer out of the green portions of the pepper plants that she harvests out or culls out, and also the fruit that maybe is not salable will go into her liquid fertilizer, and she'll let that stuff age, and she doesn't use anything that's less than 3 years old. And her results are fantastic. And some of the pictures I've seen of people who are using this process, they really have really good results from it. And the thing about this is, folks, it's free.
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't have to turn it.
Nope.
You just set it up and let nature take its course. Just give it time. The only key to it is make sure it's closed in a lid so it doesn't evaporate or something gets in it. But yeah. I think it's a very positive thing. So that's what we're going to apply today. And the ratio of dilution again is we're going to put the JMS on at a 1:50 dilution, and the fertilizer, the Jadam Liquid Fertilizer, on at a 1:200. And we'll put the material in our mix bucket and then use our Maze injector. And we've kind of done videos on that before. So it's just a matter then of just wetting it down and getting it in, and then making sure after you apply it that you apply more water again for at least another 20 minutes, 30 minutes to get a deep drench into the soil itself. So that's the process. And then once we go through 3 iterations of that, then we'll be ready to plant, which hopefully will be in about a week.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts before we sign things off?
Nope.
Anything more you want to see?
No, it's just no.
Yeah. So the dilution, told you the rates. So what does that mean? Well, when I put in my solution bucket that the Maze injector is going to go in, just to kind of give you a brief on this again, I'm going to put 1 liter of the fertilizer in, and I'm going to put 4 liters of the JMS. Now, the way this works is the Maze injector dilutes 1 to 55, and the dilution that would be in here then would give the, because the balance of it after I put those amounts in of liquid fertilizer and JMS, I fill the balance up to 3 gallons with water, and that gives me, a dilution of a dilution, which gets us to what we want to have, which is the 1 to 50 and the 1 to 210.
The solution.
The solution to dilution is pollution. No, never mind.
No, the solution of the solution equals the solution.
Yeah, it's a little convoluted, but it kind of gets you there. You dilute the first one, and then the Maze injector dilutes again, and then you're at the right level.
You're at the right level.
So, I've got to get to work. So we're going to wrap this up, and want to say thanks for watching, guys, and stay safe out there. We'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.